Well, of course, we're coming live from the Union buildings. As you heard earlier on from my colleague Natasha Phiri, the president or the leader of government of Spain is in the country for a state visit. He's going to meet with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Later in the afternoon, the leaders will address business from both countries. But there's a lot to talk about, particularly President Ramaphosa and President Sanchez, because you have lots of global challenges. Let's start with the continent, the issue of the Sahel region, and also the problem of Africans perishing in the Mediterranean Sea when they want to cross to Europe for greener pastures. You also have the issue of fear that we are likely to experience a shortage of supplies, particularly the grains due to the war in Ukraine. And I think Spain has just hosted the NATO summit in June where they discussed all these issues. And Spain wants to extend its relationship and strengthen its relationship with Africa. But to tell us more about this visit, I am with me here the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, who will really unpack what's likely to happen and the discussions. Good morning, Minister. Minister, a very important visit from one of the EU member countries, but also NATO. What do you expect from these discussions?
Well, good morning, Sophie, and good morning to the viewers of SABC. I think this is a very important visit by President Sanchez. South Africa and Spain are good trading partners. And of course, Spanish companies have participated quite robustly in the Independent Power Producers program, having supported the introduction of renewable energy in South Africa. We also trade substantively in the automotive sector as well as in agriculture, with our citrus products offering good competition to the Spanish citrus industry. So clearly we want to discuss expanding economic cooperation, as well as ensuring that we can expand the products that South Africa exports to Spain. We think there's real opportunity. The two countries are interesting in the commonalities. One is, of course, strong action in the automotive sector, but second is tourism. South Africa is a country that relies a great deal on its tourist sector, but also agriculture is very important. So I think out of those, we really would want to see greater progress. We're also looking at increasing collaboration in sports, in arts and culture. We'll be signing some MOUs today, and then of course the trade aspect would also be part of what is agreed upon.
The political aspect, the thorny issues, the war in Ukraine, the issue of African migrants crossing the Mediterranean Sea. We saw what happened in June in Morocco when many died because they wanted to go to Italy and Spain, Brussels and other European countries. Are you going to look at this issue?
Well, I think migration is a fact of life in the global community. But clearly what we would like to see in cooperation with Spain and other parties in Europe is increased economic growth for the African continent so that we create opportunities for our young people. So we certainly would discuss industrialization. We would discuss Agenda 2063 and our ambitions in that plan. I'm really glad that Spain has just published their third Africa strategy, which enhances the key focal areas that we have as the African continent. So I think prosperity in Africa, opportunities in Africa, for young people, skills training, these are areas that President Ramaphosa would emphasize. We also would stress our support for the sovereignty of the people of Western Sahara. As you know, Spain was the colonial party in that area and has recently changed the position that it had traditionally held with respect to the people of Sahrawi. So we would want to persuade that Spain continues to play a role in ensuring that the people of Western Sahara enjoy fundamental freedoms and human rights.
And the challenge of the insurgents in the Sahel region, we know that we are not immune. We saw what happened in Cabo Delgado, and South Africa cannot say we are not going to be affected by terror challenges. The Sahel region also, are you going to also look at the issue of terrorism on the continent and around the world?
Always a big threat that the global community must collaborate on. We're very concerned about terrorism. You would have heard of this alert that the United States has informed us about. Clearly, our own security organs are paying attention to this matter, and all countries have to unite to combat terrorism. It's exacting a terrible toll in the Sahel region, and whatever we can do together, I think we must all pull our security capacities into a united force against terrorists. And I'm really glad that the European Union has decided to give some support to assist us in our battle in northern Mozambique. And this is a war that we must not lose.
And finally, Minister, the war in Ukraine. You are definitely going to look at the impact of the war in Ukraine in terms of food supply and the grain issue. What will be your position when you engage Spain as a member of the European Union, but also a member of NATO? Do you think you can find one another? Because I know NATO member countries, particularly the G7 member countries, are quite not happy with South Africa's position in terms of striking the balance to ensure world peace.
South Africa is a sovereign nation with its own foreign policy positions. Our impetus is to strive for peace, and we believe this is extremely important. Peace is important for the people of Ukraine. It is important for the people of Russia. We also must respect territorial integrity and sovereignty of nations, and we will work with all countries that have a similar attitude toward international law. So our president will really stress South Africa's belief that we've got to enhance diplomacy. Much of the talk is about more and more sophisticated arms being transferred, rather than how do we find a diplomatic solution to this that will result in a sustainable peace. And this is going to be the assertion and focus of President Ramaphosa.
Thank you for your time, Minister. I know you are rushing to prepare for your counterpart before you meet the two leaders. That was Minister of International Relations in South Africa, Dr. Naledi Pandor, speaking to us about what we can expect when the two leaders are engaging each other. I think what is critical right now, it is what is happening in the Sahel region. The insurgents there, and South Africa is not immune. As she pointed out, the alert yesterday from the American embassy. But secondly, the issue of the war in Ukraine. Countries are affected worldwide, and the supply chain is affected. And finally, trade, so that the economy of South Africa can be in the better position